Welcome to the Pavestone series of how-to videos. This how to lay porcelain video will show you everything you need to know to create a beautiful porcelain patio, covering what tools and materials you need, how to prepare the area, how to mix all the materials, and how to lay and grout the paving. The video will also highlight some issues when old, out-of-date methods of laying paving have been used.
Hello there, I'm Mark from Pavestone and we're on a project today to accompany one of our Pavestone preferred installers where the homeowner has chosen to use our porcelain paving range. However, the installer has identified one or two issues that I'd like to point out to you before the project starts. This is one of them, and we have a rocky, unstable slab. It's also outside the main back door of the property, so any young children or the elderly, it's a classic trip hazard. Now I think I know what's happening. Let's take a look underneath. Okay, so as suspected, we've got soil and we've got what we call dabs, although the middle one has got very little cement. And then we've got this big void, which is encouraging insects, vermin, moisture to sit underneath the slabs. Entirely the wrong way to lay a paving slab.
Here's another loose slab, and as suspected, look, a colony of ants have moved in. There's no subbase at all, it's just soil and sand, so it's time to get the guys in, get this area lifted and dug out. These are all the tools that you will need for the job. Most of these you will probably have in your shed or your garage, but some you may need to buy from your local builder's merchant or DIY store. And these are all the tools you will more than likely need to hire from your local tool hire store. Materials for the job: subbase, sharp sand, or sometimes called washed concreting sand, cement, the all essential priming slurry, and the flexible tile grout. And finally, the all important safety gear, essential for all installations. Digging out the correct amount for your patio is most critical. Not digging out enough could end up in having to relay your paving, and in worst case could cause structural problems inside the house. Most properties will have a damp proof course, or what is commonly referred to as a DPC. This is usually laid between two brick courses to stop damp from rising up into the property. It's essential that your paving is not laid too close to this damp proof course. Count down 2 full bricks from your DPC or 150mm. The finished height of your patio should not be above this level. Mark down a further 150 to 160mm from this point. This is the level that you need to dig out to. This will allow for the slab around 20mm, the laying mortar around 40mm, and then finally 100mm of subbase. The soil at the bottom of the excavated area should be firm. Check with your heel. If it sinks in, it's too soft and you'll have to dig out more until you hit firm ground. You will also need to consider the fall of the patio. This is so water can run off the surface of the paving. The fall should be 1 in 60, so for every 60 cm of paving, the drop should be 1 cm. For example, if your patio is 3 metres, then one end should be 5 cm lower than the other end. Hammer the peg into the ground until the top is at the level of the finished paving height. Hammer another peg where the patio will finish and run a string line between the two pegs. Ensure the string slopes down from the building to the edge of the patio. Some spirit levels are already marked at 1 in 60, which makes getting the correct fall much easier. As you can see on the illustration, and due to the fall, more needs to be dug out at the edge to ensure the correct level of subbase and bedding mortar. Now that you're happy with the levels and the correct fall, the subbase can be tipped in. MOT Type 1 is the best material to use and can be purchased from your local builders merchants in bulk bags or delivered to your property loose on a tipper lorry. Spread the subbase out to about 30mm below the string line. Using a vibrating plate to compact the subbase down. This is one of the most important factors when installing a patio. Poor compaction and not enough subbase will leave you with areas of the paving sinking. Compact down to 60mm below the string line. You may need to top up with more stone. So just checking, 100mm of subbase leaves 60mm for the bedding mortar and the paving. Regularly check to make sure the whole area has the correct levels. Spend plenty of time compacting your subbase, passing the plate over the whole area at least 7 times, and don't worry, you can never over compact. Before you start laying, you should always inspect the paving as soon as it's been delivered. If you are not laying the paving yourself and you're having a project completed while you're on holiday, try and take delivery before you leave so you can double check all is in order. With porcelain paving, you should always check that the batch and shade numbers match, just the same as you would when buying wallpaper. If the numbers are different, you could have a mismatch of colours across the patio. It's now time to mix the bedding mortar. There are many different mixing methods around the UK and also different mixers. This is down to the type of sand that's available in your area. We recommend that you lay Pavestone porcelain paving onto a mix made up of 5 parts sharp sand, or sometimes called wash concreting sand, 1 part cement and water. You may wish to add plasticizer to the mix, which improves workability. Just follow the advice and the instructions on the packaging. Unless you are laying a very small amount of paving, say a couple of slabs, then it's a good idea to hire a cement mixer. This will be much quicker and much less hard work as mixing in a wheelbarrow. Use a bucket to gauge the correct proportions. First add some water, then 3 buckets of sand and then the cement. Keep the drum moving to avoid the mixture sticking to the back and the sides. Let that mix together and then add the last 2 buckets of sand, keeping an eye on the wetness and adding a small amount of water at a time. It should be a nice creamy mix. Too dry and it will be hard to tamp the slab down to the correct level, and it may not adhere properly. Too wet and the slab will slide around and laying will be very messy. Check the consistency before pouring out into the wheelbarrow, but you must always turn the mixer off first. This is how your mix should look. And here's a top tip. Put a splash of water into the drum to clean off any leftover mix. A few rotates and then switch the mixer off. This will make your other mixes easier to do.
Right, the subbase is now down and the guys have started to lay the paving. The customer has chosen this impressive porcelain paving, which is from the Pavestone Discovery range. This is the Origin Grande colour and it has a very light textured finish. As with all porcelain paving, you must apply a coat of slurry primer to the back of the paver. It acts like a glue, which gives a strong bond between the paver and the mortar bed. Okay, we're now ready to start to mix and apply the Pavestone priming slurry. Before I start, a couple of health and safety pointers. A dust mask, a pair of gloves and some safety glasses. So to do the mixing, we would recommend use of an electric drill. Most people have one in the garage or in the shed with a paddle for mixing on the end. If you're using a small amount of the powder, a cordless drill will work fine. Likewise, a larger amount of powder, you might want to consider hiring or buying a professional paddle mixer. Next job, take the powder out of the tub. So to mix this bag, we're going to need 4 litres of clean water, and it must be clean water, into the tub so we're ready to mix. Okay, the priming slurry is now mixed and it's all ready to be applied to the back of the slab. So here we go. So get a good amount of product on the brush. And an essential part of applying this is to make sure that we go right to the edge. So it's no good leaving the edge. That's the wrong way to apply this product. You need to get right to the edge. Okay, so paint it on, nice consistency. The other thing to bear in mind is, as I've said before, this is a glue. It's a very strong adhesive. It will stick. Best to keep a bucket of clean water and a sponge on one side, because if you get it on the face, you need to wipe it off. As you can see, I'm going right to the edge. Top tip, I've got 2 bits of timber there. It keeps the paving off of the ground. That allows me to come straight across the bottom. I'm not applying the primer onto the ground and picking all the dirt up. One last dip, straight up the edge. No clear bits of paving showing. Okay, paving slab fully primed. This one's over to the lads for them to lay it.
Shovel enough mortar where the slab is to be laid. Then, with a builder's trowel, knock the mortar around to create a full bed. Rough up the bed to create ridges. As we are laying 20mm thick porcelain, the mortar bed should be around 10 to 15mm below the string line. Next, carefully lower the primed slab onto the bed, taking care not to let the slab knock against any adjacent ones, as this may chip the edge. With a rubber mallet, tap the slab down onto the roughened bed. The slab will now compress the mortar down to create a smooth, full bed. Check that the edges of the slab sit flush with the adjacent ones and that it's also level with a string line that's providing the correct fall. Use a spirit level or straight edge across other slabs to check there are no high or low spots. When you are happy that everything is level, give the slab a wipe down with a damp sponge and insert a tile spacer. The pavestone grout will work in gaps between 2 and 15mm, and generally the most commonly used gap is 3 to 5. You should never butt joint, as this will damage the edge of the slabs. Before carrying out any form of cutting, you must wear the correct personal protective equipment as shown at the start of this video. You can cut the slabs as and when required, but you may prefer to lay all the full slabs first and then do the cutting in one go. If your project requires a lot of cutting, it's a good idea to hire a table saw. This will make light work of cutting, however a petrol powered wet saw or an electric grinder will do the job quite adequately. And they're also perfect for cutting curves and small intricate cuts around drain covers. When cutting porcelain with any type of equipment, the most important thing to do is take your time. Take a look at our How to Cut Porcelain video for more comprehensive hints, tips and instructions on how to successfully cut porcelain slabs. And just to show how effective the priming slurry is, this slab was laid the previous day. Look how the laying bed is completely stuck to the underneath of the slab. This shows how essential it is to use priming slurry when laying porcelain paving. The final part of the project is the grouting. Before you start to grout, the paving must be completely dry and free of any dust and debris. You may also need to lightly wipe down with a damp sponge and check there is no water in the joints, because this will affect the colour of the grout as it dries. Crack open the lid and take out the sealed bags, and it's best just to mix half of the tub at a time, especially on a hot day. Using clean water, measure out 1.2 litres into a clean sturdy bucket. A good tip is to use a marker pen on the side of your measuring jug. one at 1 litre and one at 200 millilitres. Gradually pour in one 5 kg bag of grout. There are some tubs which will have 4 bags of 2.5 kg. If this is the case, then use 2 2.5 kg bags with 1.2 litres of water. Thoroughly mix with the paddle mixer until it's a nice thick creamy texture with no lumps.
Okay, so the grout is now mixed and ready to be applied to the paving. And to do that, we can use a traditional squeegee or a float. Alternatively, you can use a grout applicating gun. Keeps the job cleaner and quicker. And you can pick these up for around about £30.
The traditional method of applying the grout is using a rubber float. Completely fill the joint by pressing the grout in. Always try and keep any excess grout on the slab to a minimum, which will make it easier for you to clean down. Another method is using a grout applicating gun. Whilst filling the tube can take some time, it's much cleaner and quicker to apply into the joints. Just make sure that the grout fills the joint right to the bottom. As you can see, passing the rubber float along the line leaves very little excess to clean off. When the grout has started to firm up, wipe any excess off using a tiling sponge. And here is another top tip. To help the cleaning down process, we recommend using Pavestone porcelain tile protector. Simply apply along the joints before you start the grouting. What a complete transformation! From a tired, sad-looking patio with dull, square concrete slabs to this beautiful contemporary garden. With our low-maintenance porcelain paving and this artificial lawn, all the homeowner needs to do now is just sit back and relax. For more installation hints and tips, visit the website pavestone.co.uk.